you guys. I am so excited because we are going to dive into a really juicy episode about what it's like to really become a systematic wife, mom, business owner, all the things. Carrie, welcome to the Systemize Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. We're so excited to have you here. Like I ask every single guest, we're going to start out with you, obviously introducing yourself, but also tell us a little bit about what you juggle on a regular basis.
Sure. I am Carrie Bock, and I am juggling being a mom to an almost 3-year-old. I'm married to a husband who has a chronic disability, so he's not able to work. So that makes a big difference, obviously, in our work and home life. And I've had a counseling practice for about 7 years. I also have a podcast called Christian Faith and OCD. So it's quite a lot that I'm juggling.
Yeah, that does sound like a lot. Obviously, along with your home and all of the things that you have to keep up with there on a regular basis. So I really am kind of excited to talk about how it is that you are juggling all these things, and what is like the main thing that you feel like has really been helping you. But before we do that, obviously you're a student inside of Systemize to Scale, which is so fun having you there, and you've been such an incredible student. So I'm really excited to be able to highlight and showcase the work that you've been doing. And your questions every week and just your calm demeanor and your personality, it's so encouraging. But you also have been working really, really hard. So tell us what was it like? What was life like before you had systems in place? And what was like the big thing that you felt like was super hard for you that made you want to invest so much time and money and trust into Systemize to Scale?
Yeah, I knew that I really wanted to take my podcast to the next level and get more income from that. I mean, certainly it was sending me individual clients, but I also wanted to create a group training program that I could utilize for people who are out of state due to licensure laws. You know, there's certain things that I can't do across state lines. So that was important to me. But also, I think before I did Systemize to Scale, I was very scattered. It was, oh no, I don't have lunch money for my daughter and it's hot lunch day. Oh no, I have this recipe, like this dinner that I was going to make, but I'm missing one ingredient and I don't have time to run to the store. And, sometimes shopping was happening on Friday, like grocery delivery, and sometimes it was Saturday and Sunday. And then I was like, oh, I don't have the things I need to prep for the week ahead. So that was a big shift that I really made of creating space in my week to meal plan, and on Thursday nights have all of the groceries ordered so that they will be there by Friday, so that over the weekend we can, do some meal prep and kind of just be very intentional about what we eat and not have to be scrambling. I would plan meals, but like I said, it was not in a good systemized fashion. So that was the home side, was things were a little chaotic, and there's a lot of things I have to keep up with, obviously, with my husband, his appointments, his health. He doesn't drive. So anything that involves driving is on me as far as taking people to appointments and so forth. So there's a lot that goes into that. But then for the business side, I thought, well, I kind of had a flow in terms of how I get clients and what that looked like and the journey that they would go on through from initial contact to actually becoming a client. And I knew that system worked pretty well. But as far as for the podcast, what was crazy was I thought I had a system because I was using Trello. I was like, oh, yes, I have Trello, but I would go in there and even it wasn't organized. I didn't know, I was like, okay, where are we at with this episode? What are we working on? Okay, I know I need to review something. Like I have a podcasting assistant that helps me out. I was like, okay, I need to review what she edited, or I know I need to create some more episodes, but, and what about, can I get this person as a guest? It was just all over the place. So my being able to come into Systemize to Scale was in getting the cockpit set up was a really big deal for me because my brain just doesn't think like that. I needed the help and I needed the support of Okay, let me show you what I have, and it's a mess right now. How do I fix this? What do I need to put in here that's not already in here? So now podcasting is a lot more organized for sure.
Yeah. Which there's so many good things in there. But I just want to say that there's probably a lot of people listening that do understand, but I think there's probably more people in the mix that don't understand what it's like when you are the only person that's able to drive at all times. And we had a very short season of that where my husband had a pretty serious knee injury and was unable to drive for about 2 months. And just even like getting the wheelchair in and out of the car and the crutches in and out of the car, plus the kids, plus the appointments, his appointments on top of their appointments at school, like it was a lot. It was a lot, right? And so I think at some capacity for a very short time there, I was able to grasp a small portion of what a person like you is really having to do and to work through on a regular basis to keep things going. And I think I just wanted to point that out because it's an undertaking. It's something that you're fully adapted to at this point. Obviously, it's the way that your life rolls, but I do know that it's every person that's watching or listening, they have small things in their life that are bigger and heavier, that make the situation complex, that make the scenario hard for them. And I get a lot of people that say, well, will this work for me? Because it's like XYZ for me. And so I think it's so great that you've mentioned the uniqueness of your family and the dynamic of what you're dealing with, because you do have extra responsibilities on your plate that maybe a single mom could understand too, of bearing the burden all on her own. But there's another layer to that. You probably have more phone calls, you have more appointments to make, you have just the daily of like, I remember trying to make sure that he was on point with his medications and his nutrition, and it was somebody else that had extra needs. Maybe moms with children that have extra needs that are outside of the norm, they can understand. There's another layer of complexity there. And so I really just wanted to highlight how important it's been for you to have systems in place because of that. And I think whether it's similar in that fashion or it's in a slightly different manner, everybody really can thrive at a totally different level using systems because they are the thing that makes way for more time, more space, more bandwidth. And I think that's kind of what I want to talk about next is what obviously now we've got things on autopilot, right? Like the meal planning and you don't have to think about that anymore. We've found a groove and a rhythm that works for you. And obviously it wasn't smooth sailing, although for you, I think you adapted fairly quickly to the systems that you put in place. You had questions and you tweaked things over time, but I think you adapted fairly well. We do have some students that are like fish out of water, and we get them there, but I don't think you necessarily were feeling, I don't think you've floundered. I think you've really flourished and have been able to thrive as you've come in. Maybe you took to it a little bit more naturally. How did your family take to it? What was that like for them when you started implementing things?
Well, it's provided much more work-life balance, which I think my family appreciates quite a bit. And even my daughter, she's really young, she doesn't understand a whole lot of things, as far as she knows mom has to go to work. She doesn't really fully understand, all the things that entails or what that means. And it's confusing because sometimes mom works at home and sometimes she works in an office. So, but what it does mean is that it's allowed me to carve out my work schedule so that I have Wednesday afternoons are like our mother-daughter date time, and we go to either like an indoor play area, depending on the weather, or an outdoor playground. And today it actually snowed, so she's home, we have a snow day, so I told her after I was done with this meeting, we're gonna go out and play in the snow. So we just have really sweet time together. And I think before I would spend time with my daughter, I would be like, oh gosh, I got that podcasting thing to do, or, oh no, I need to email that person back, or, oh, and now that I have time already set in my schedule and I have everything set up, I know when I'm going to do certain tasks. I don't have that mental clutter that I had before, or I'm not trying to sit there and think, what is going to go out in my email this week while I'm trying to be present with my daughter. And I feel that feels so huge to me. I think that that's a great gift. My husband's amazing. Even though there's a lot of things that he can't do, he is totally in charge of the laundry. When I tell you that I do not exactly know how our washer and dryer work, it is not a lie. I went to do some laundry after Christmas because we had so much coming back from Christmas, being away with family. And I said, am I pushing the right buttons on this thing? So
that sounds like a fair trade. I mean,
yes.
that's a good trade-off. I'll do all the driving. You do all the laundry. Check. Let's do that. That's awesome.
And so we've been able to kind of work together on things.
Sure.
If, as far as like with dinners and after dinner and things of that nature. I think that we meld really well together. I'm like, hey, I need you to, at this time, set the air fryer on this, or at this time, make sure that the crock pot's on, things like that. He's able to do that and planning out things so that, why am I making my life extra complicated on days where I have to work till 5? Why am I making it super complicated? Why am I not making it like an instant pot, crock pot, like really easy type deal for myself? So that's been a huge, and he, so my husband has been, I think, supportive and on board for systems for sure.
I want to circle back to the podcast thing in just a second, but I think it's important, just as you bring up the whole meal situation, at how daunting that task really is, especially, I don't know. I mean, it's always been daunting for me. It always has been. But just the other day, I was like, my daughter's about to be a teenager and she's like literally about to turn 13, and the amount of food that child consumes. And then I'm like trying to keep my husband fed because he's back. He's in full rehab for his knees, trying to build muscle back. And like, obviously I've been on this whole kick for a while and of really, trying to focus on my health. And I think a lot of people are, and just even like trying not to hit the drive-through so many times a week, like it's like a common American struggle is like, can we just not have so much fast, even if it's just highly processed, right? Just
sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just being able to feel good about ourselves as moms and nurturers and caregivers in that regard alone is so huge. And it's not even like one of the main things that we talk about when we set up our home management system. But for some reason, the laundry, keeping the house clean, keeping the dishes clean, and keeping up with food, and then obviously the schedule are like the big pieces. So I love that you've highlighted how much mental capacity and bandwidth you've been able to get back by systemizing that, because that was a huge thing for me too. And I think it is for everybody. So I'm so happy that that's not even something that you're worried about or thinking about anymore, because what a relief, right? Like,
yeah, it really is. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. Let's talk about your podcast and this whole process, because what a fun thing to systemize. What an incredible, which I know you mentioned that you have your cockpit in place, which is like the central hub where you keep all of your tasks. And that has been able to totally systemize all the things that you do in your business. But I heard you mention that you were using Trello. And what are you using now? What does that look like? Which I already know, but you can share.
Well, yes, Chelsi has switched me over to MeisterTask, which I enjoy quite a bit, and I tried to play around with it because I heard you talk about it on your podcast before, and I tried to play around with it, and it's like, let me try to see if I can go in here and figure this out, and what do I need to do? And of course, I didn't know what I was doing, so it was kind of like just throwing spaghetti against the wall or whatever, and hoping it sticks. So I had tried to set up different things for myself. But yeah, you teach us about the different workflows that we have. And so that podcasting workflow, it's like I can go in there and look at, I can see exactly like where I am in the process. Here's the ideas. Here's the ones where I've created a title and outline for. Here's ones where I've picked date, I've picked a date that it's going to come out. And then here's recording and editing and promotion. And it just kind of goes down the line. And it's a smooth process for me, which is, it obviously honestly saves a lot of time and energy. And being able to go into the task management system and you can actually track your time in there. And that for me has been really helpful. It's like, okay, I'm here, I'm on the clock with this task so that I'm not going to like, oh, let me open up my email again, or let me, like, oh, I have this idea. Let me like sit down for 2 hours and work on some random idea. And I think not recently, but I think in times past, I would have definitely done that. And then just realizing since I've had my daughter and I have my husband, there are only a limited amount of hours that I'm actually able to work in a week. And knowing like, hey, I have to get this stuff done in these hours in order to have this time with my family, in order to have this time with my daughter. And that's what I really want, to have that balance.
Yeah, knowing that you can actually accomplish it, I think is huge because beforehand, right? Like before you had this in place, what were your thought processes every week when you were thinking about the work that you had to get accomplished? Like, were you able to shut it down in the evenings? Were you able to shut it down on the weekends versus what it feels like now? What does it feel like when you get to the end of the week and the end of the day?
Yeah, I think in the past, but, before developing all the systems, I definitely was, working, it felt like all the time, just trying to like squeeze it into the cracks and, at times like tell my daughter, hey, like, come upstairs with me. I need to do this thing. And then we'll go outside, like bribery, which sometimes still occasionally happens from time to time when you have to. Yeah. But, for the most part now, I think it's like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. And if for some reason I can't get it done because I think it's going to take 2 hours and it's really going to take 3, then I will be able to say like, okay, let me see if I can move that to another day. Can I move it to next week? Can I might need to work an hour in the evening after my daughter goes to bed, but at least I know that that's a time limited kind of open and close thing versus it's just leaching into my, my day and my life all the time, constantly switching gears in your brain, like, oh, I got to go do this. Oh, I got to go do that. Oh, over and over. And then back and forth between home and business is exhausting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think it's done for like your dreams and like what you think you're capable of now? Like when you sit and you think about the future of your business and the future of you as a wife and a mom, what kind of capacity do you have just for like your confidence and the way that you think about you as a person now that you have these systems in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. I've known for a long time that I've been very entrepreneurial, and it's been a little bit like being out on an island because I don't have as many like friends or family members who are also in that space. And being able to, I hit my BHAG income goal for January, and that was a really, really big deal for me. And because I'd only been in Systemized to Scale since the fall, probably September, October, somewhere in there. So I was like, okay, like, yes, I can do this. That was kind of proof like, hey, the hard work paid off, and not just the hard work paid off, but it's more for me now about working smarter. What is actually going to bring in revenue? What is actually going to move you towards your goals that you have? And so it feels a little bit more like the sky's the limit, but also I'm not about the like, oh, you just got to hustle and get on top. And then you're on top and you look back and your like wife and your husband and your kids are floundering, I didn't want it to be like that ever in my business, especially when my daughter was born. And then, my husband became disabled when she was 6 months old. Well, when she was 6 months old, we found out what his disability was. So it kind of just shifted everything for me about like, I have to take care of these people. And in order to take care of these people, I also have to work. So how do I find that? How do I find that balance of really loving my family well, making sure they're taken care of, and then also like working enough so that I can bring in the income so that they'll be okay?
That's so just it. Because there's so many women that, this is what I talk about all the time, and it just never ceases to amaze me that every woman just has this dream to be able to financially contribute to her family, whether she has to or because she wants to. but you could never get rid of that longing to pour into your home and your kids, even if we don't love it, right? Even if we don't love it, there's still a longing to want to be the person that can proudly say, yeah, my home's kept, and I know exactly what my child's wearing, and I know exactly what she had for dinner or for breakfast. Like, we're present enough to understand these details, and you truly, for all of us that are married, we know how much work it is to keep a connection in a marriage day after day after year after year. And it takes time. It takes time to do that. It takes bandwidth. We have to take care of ourselves to be able to emotionally and physically and spiritually to feel like opening up and sharing intimately with our spouses every day. And just even to be able to trudge through the sludge of paying bills and disciplining and sickness and all the things, right? It takes time and it takes capacity. And so I just love that you have had that moment. Congratulations, too. I was so excited when you shared that in the group. What an incredible feeling. I love that feeling whenever I get to experience it. And I'm so excited that you were able to experience that, to be able to hit your BHAG after just a few months of really staying focused on. And this is what we talk about in Systemize to Scale a lot, is like, yes, we put systems in place, but then it's like, all right, how do we show up to create major impact that will create the income that we're looking for when we sit down to our work block? What is it that will really move the needle? And I also really found it to be something worth celebrating when we were able to get you and the people that you have helping you produce your podcast very systematic, because creating consistent content often is so hard for people that they end up giving up on it, or they don't do their best work there. And those lead gens are really important. And I know that that is a vital tool for you and your business. So I'm very excited to know that you are just thriving, and that workflow for your podcast production is pretty seamless and it's working really well. Not that we won't ever have to adjust it, but I think you've had a lot of wins personally in your home and in your business, obviously. And it's just been really, really great to see. Carrie, I want to know a little bit more about the work that you do so other women can understand you as a business owner. We've talked a lot about what you do in your home, but I would love for you to just share the work that you do online, obviously, so everyone that's listening, where they can find you, how they can connect with you, because obviously one of the biggest reasons why you're in Systemize to Scale is to be able to do more of the incredible work that you do. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure. You can find me at carriebock.com. That's all things counseling and podcast. Or where you listen to podcasts, it's Christian Faith and OCD. I help Christians calm the inner chaos caused by trauma and anxiety and OCD in their lives. So I do intensive day-long therapy sessions, and I have a 12-week group coaching program for Christians learning ICBT, which is a very specified form of treatment for OCD. So put a lot of Christian integration in there.
I love that a lot, actually, because throughout the years of my family seeking counseling services for a lot of different reasons, it's always been paramount for me to be able to find that influence of the same faith along with that. So I'm really glad that you were able to share that and that you've been able to have success with that work. And I am super excited to just work right alongside you and encourage you and support you systematically, and just as a community member with all of our other students as you continue to work and grow inside Systemize to Scale. All right, Carrie, thanks so much for being here. You guys, please make sure that you look down in the description and the show notes to be able to learn more about Carrie and connect with her. All right, thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me.